Welcome to the Chaotic Wholesome Talk Show. I am Kay, your co-host for the day. We are here with an incredible special guest, but first, David, my co-host. Who are we, and what are we doing here?
Welcome to the Chaotic Wholesome Talk Show, where we talk about TTRPG stuff, how to be a better GM, how to be a better player, how to break in, and all with focus on intersectionality and inclusion so that we can all have a good time.
Hey. I like to give David that little intro because David has stuff to talk about that he can't talk about quite yet. But in the meantime, soon, very soon, hopefully very, very, very soon. In the meantime, I got some stuff to plug. September's going to be real busy for me. Find me here every Tuesday doing this with David. He's awesome. On, gosh, what is today? The 6th? Coming up on the 12th, you can find me over at the Red Hair Inn playing on the Halls of the Mad King. I play a incredibly chaotic changeling. I was not prepared for just how chaotic this character would be. Apparently I can do impressions. On Thursday, find me over on Saucefire's channel. I get to play Trixie, the artillerist raccoon again, which I'm very excited about. Every other Wednesday, new episodes of the Emergency Power Podcast, where I play Soul. And I've got something coming up on the 11th that I'll be able to talk about very soon as well, so mark that. But with that out of the way, we have a very special guest today who I am so excited is here and we get to talk to. Matt, tell us a little bit about who you are and where we can find you.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Matt. If you're on Twitter, you may know me as DungeonGlitch. I own Gemmed Firefly. It's my hobby outlet art thing that I just kind of, we put it together. We make fun t-shirts. I'm actually wearing one. Normally I don't. Yeah, I'm off with talking about myself.
Just to be clear.
Yeah. Yeah. I make music. I make D&D supplements. I'm pro DM technically. I hang out on Twitter. I help small businesses with their marketing. I do everything. I got a podcast coming up, which I'm super excited about. I do too much. That's really what it is at this point.
Many talents, many trades. So, I was lucky enough to get to meet Matt over on Gamer Mom Luna's channel. We played in a charity game together, and Matt does many things, as we see, and there's many things we're going to cover on this, but I want to kick off because one of the things I really like that made, beyond all the other awesome, that made Matt really stand out in my mind was you have a really cool approach to one-shots and how rewarding characters for coming up, for bringing you backstories and bringing you different character elements and making those matter in a one-shot is very difficult because in a one-shot you got a lot of ground to cover and a very little bit of time to do it. So do you want to describe that, or should I just take up more space and talk more about what it was like on the receiving side of that?
Oh man. So, the thing that drives me when I'm working on one shots is I try to make them memorable, and almost none of them are the same. Like I'm always trying to experiment with something new or try something out, even if it's just for myself. Or one of my things, like I'll ask players, what's something you've never done that you want to try? We're gonna do it, and then I find some way to turn that up even louder, and we're gonna get this even better. So yeah. So what was there for you then? Because I can start anywhere. I just.
So one of the things that stood out to me first of all was, you came to us with okay, here's the plot, here's the setting, which number one is always, I don't want to say always, because it's definitely not always, but it's one of the more challenging things I find to make sure that everyone is rowing the same direction in a one shot, because, David knows I have characters with I think it's up to 16 pages of backstory for one of them, and I don't bring that character to one shot, or if I do, I don't bring that character expecting to dive into that whole background in the one shot, but not every player gets that.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, when Kay brings the 16-page character, she does narrow it down to 26 pages of bullet points to make it easier for the DM.
I'm being
Very
attacked. But like, one shots can be a challenge, a fun balancing act of like, we got to tell a story for all of these characters who the players probably don't know each other. If the characters know each other, like we're figuring out the backstory as we go. You want to let each player and each character have their moment to shine. But you also got to get through an adventure so it's satisfying for all the players and also the audience if it's streamed. And you did a really nice balance of like, bring me your character, here's the setting, bring me a character, and bring me like an NPC or a major backstory set piece. And you incorporated that in the very beginning in a very, it's here, it's acknowledged, it's here for you to use, but it's also kind of out of the way.
Yeah. So it's tricky with one shots because like a lot of people will give advice on how to run one shots. It's like, yeah, just make a character, get the characters to the end, make sure something happens, have enough space for RP and at least one combat, and then you're out. And hopefully everyone got to do something.
Hopefully,
like,
yes.
Sure, but it's like I do prefer that players get a little bit of that attention. They get a moment where like their character matters and the choices that they make matter. Because I've been in enough one shots now where like I have so many just faceless characters that don't even matter. They just happen to be stats, and I just kind of like, well, I rolled a 19. I don't remember what I'm doing. Hopefully it works. And you just run through so many. After a while, it's just like you just kind of start to fade on them. So I don't necessarily like when players feel the need to fight for the spotlight either. It's like, oh well, I had a clever moment this game, or it's like I had an off night, I didn't do anything. Like I don't want you to have to feel like you have to entirely pull all your weight and carve out an opportunity for yourself. So whenever I get the chance, I will work with players to create little bits of backstory, and it's usually I try to do it through various questions that on my end have branching answers, and I'll put little plot points that'll come up in the story that may or may not gain a benefit from some of the choices they picked. I actually went through my notes and I have the questions that I asked you. So you played Roxy, who's a paladin, who's a Pastafarian, which I'm like, that's awesome. So right there, we got a lot to work with. But I asked you, let's see. Let's see. So we did the questions before, and then we also did like a quick narrative speed run through at different points where your characters landed. It was a little like sea adventure, and we hit like 2 or 3 different spots before reaching the destination where the whole thing starts. And
JD, thank you for the subscription.
Yeah, and Roxy's character like landed on one of the ports, and I was just like, okay, so you have one of 3 options. Did you meet with the temple for more information? Did you check the docks for recruits? Did you seek unique gear? And depending on which one you chose, you got a benefit. And as some people did choose, hey, I pick up recruits, later on when you're in this large-scale battle, those recruits show up. If you didn't, then you'd be on your own and things would be a little tougher. So otherwise, it's like, yeah, here's a potion.
Because when we started too, before we got to those questions, you asked each of us for an NPC, an important character, and I crossed the streams a little bit in a really fun way, which is a fun little experiment for me, because I play Roxy in the game that David runs, a home game that David runs, and then in my Starfinder game, an NPC that was brought in for my completely unrelated character was a half-orc, like, thief girl. And I was like, oh, this would be cute. This could be, like, her contact, because Roxy doesn't, outside of the party members, doesn't have a lot of, like... And they were kids, so I wanted a kid character. So it was fun when it was like, she shows up and is like, yeah, I guess I'll help you. And it was so cool when later on I was able to throw up a flare. So the way the mechanic worked was like, she promised to help, I got a flare, and I could throw that up whenever I needed it.
Yep.
And it was just this really cool, like, nod to this character backstory that had very quickly but coherently come together and had a mechanical benefit too.
Yeah. Yeah, Bowie showed up, and I think she helped you out with all the locks in the dungeon, and yeah, it was great.
It was a good time.
So mechanically, it's not difficult to do. It just takes, you also got to trust your players to be like, here, make some decisions. I'm going to roll with whatever you pick. This is where we're going to end up with. And it also gives you the opportunity to role play with an NPC that you're comfortable with because you made them. Yeah. So, it's a lot of fun.
It also kind of was a cool in a one-shot with people who hadn't played together before. Gave us a little bit of insight as to the other characters, because like my character went to the temple for advice. Other people were like, I want the item, give me the item, right? And you could kind of start to get a feel of what these characters valued just from that, which was better than like, show my character, and not there's anything wrong with that, right? I've certainly done, but it was cool to get these characters almost unconsciously telling you, the players, and the audience what's important to them. So I just really
there was one. Yeah, there was one who I think they landed on the beach, and it was you can help. You can go looking for items. You can help people in the camp, or you can go help out like the scouts. And like, oh, I'm going to be a scout. We're going to find any danger. And you're right. You do start to kind of pick out what matters to characters based on these tiny, tiny choices that don't even necessarily have to even have narrative. It's just these small things. Here's a mechanical bonus. You meet 3 scouts. They're going to help you get into the secret lair easier. That's it. That's all there is to it. And I love doing that stuff. And it helps me build the world out by asking these questions. Yeah.
Because you do so many things like games design, sensitivity counts, consulting, and so on. But since we're talking about DMing, and I always have a focus on that, what is your like outside of one shots? What's your general approach to DMing a game, and how you approach systems and how you approach players?
So I homebrew everything, all my worlds. I can't play in the modular worlds either, or the settings. I just can't do it. I like the freedom because otherwise it's just going to be I feel like. So oftentimes I'll make a world that I'll start with an idea, and usually it'll be like, okay, let's try something really different, something we haven't done before, and test out the limits of these rules in this world and suspended belief of what makes sense. And then I'll hang out with the players, and it'll be like, okay, what do you want to do? What kind of things do you want to see? What's something you've never done that you want to try? And then people usually come up with at least 3 different things. I can work with that. Or some people just go like, hey, you know what? I'm down with whatever you want to do. Let's go. It's like, okay, yes, but because I feel like when people, like, it's fine to say like I trust you to do this, but it's also like I want you included so you're also not behind. Like if I have 4 out of 5 players who are really about putting together a backstory, it's like I don't want you to not have a story, and then it seems like your character doesn't have a motive, and they're just kind of there, and then you're just kind of like making things up on the fly. It's like I'm trying to make this easier for you. Rules wise, it's rules cool, and I'll mix things from other games if it makes sense. That's something I actually really love doing. I've had characters from different games land in games with other rules, and I'm just like, nope, we're gonna play that as if you were still in your old game. So I had a D20 modern character show up in 3.5 and in 5e, and they continued to use their gun because they fell out of the sky with it. So it's like, hey, cool, you know how to do this. You're an intelligent hero with dex levels, so let's go. Fighting a dragon. We're gonna enchant your gun. Let's go.
That's pretty cool. Because Kay and I have spoken before about incorporating not just different ideas, but like if we see something in a different game system that we're like, that we just snatch it, it's ours, and that's it. But also one thing I really love to do is to take characters that people I know have played, even if they haven't played, even if that person's not playing in that game, but I'll take like one of their old characters and make them an NPC in my world. And it's fun because one, I don't have to like come up with a new interesting character because the work has already been done. And often I also have a character sheet on hand ready for it, which helps a lot. But it's cool because then you get to go back to, your friend and say, hey, do you want to hear about what your character has been up to in this world? And those are always great conversations to have.
Yep, that's kind of like the running gag. The number one running gag in my campaigns is the D20 the D20 modern character that keeps appearing. He's cursed to appear in every campaign, and for him it's a single story, and it's the same character, and for him it's all chronological. And he's been in like the epic level campaign, so he is epic level when he appears anywhere else. And he started off in as like a low-level character, and then he showed up in like a mid-level game. He got his gun enchanted in 3.5. So he started taking like Zen archery, but he took a Zen gun, and then he started, and like later on, and he starts going to like the epic levels, and they started like the psionic guide had just come out, so then they enchanted it with psionics, and now it's like when he shoots things, the bullets enhance, and it's just this insane just weapon. And later on, I had another campaign, and it's the same character, but I hadn't played with the player who originally made them, in a while, and he was in this game, and that character ended up being the big bad, who was just trying to escape this plane and see if he can get back to where he wants to go. And they're not trying to stop him, and they find out that they end up really kind of like trying to work with him. But when he found out that it was his character, his head exploded. It was amazing. And I just keep using the character because it's too funny for me not to.
Right.
So if anyone is watching this VOD and is wondering why David and I are just pounding water, Kato, I like to think I'm our local Chaos Gremlin, but Kato is definitely our local Chaos Gremlin, has just pounded like 10 Redeem Hydrates.
Oh, I'm not in the...
That's fine,
Speaking of players where I take their characters and make them into NPCs, Kato is one of the people that have been victimized by this propensity of mine.
So I was going to say, I have a himbo bard who goes... Wow, really?
There's love and respect in that.
I have this delightful himbo bard who is basically a Disney princess, and just wanders through life completely cluelessly, very much a Fey lost, chaotic good, clueless, and has been through... Oh, thank you for the subscription, Rex! Has been through all sorts of adventures in one 5e campaign, and it has been in a couple one-shots, and like all of these things definitely end up tying together. Kind of like with Roxy, she's had the Flying Spaghetti Monster appear to her in a game run by Gabe Hicks. He didn't know this whole thing with her backstory, but he's all like, well, Flying Spaghetti Monster appears, and I'm like, same thing keeps happening with this character. We ended up playing in a brief Urban Shadows thing. And I'm like, talking to the GM, I'm like, I want it to be this same character, because at the end of this campaign, it was turned into a demigod. And so I'm like, it makes total sense that he's been all the way through, but like, then a big thing with Urban Shadows is you owe favors to people, and I'm like, I want him to owe a bunch of favors because he wanted his godhood removed because it was too much work and responsibility. And so I'm like trying to convince my GM. I'm like, look, hear me out. I'm not going to demand any of the demigod powers. I just want the Fae who can't lie to be able to say, yes, I was a god briefly, and it was terrible. And so then I get the joy of going back to everyone who's run games for this character and be like, so do you want to hear what he's up to now?
Yes.
So there's just a delight in tying all that together. It's too fun to not.
So Gum has a question, and it's actually an excellent question and something that I still debate about as a GM. How do you handle having traps that are not obvious or fall to the constant, I check for traps every 5 feet?
Actually, I don't typically use those traps. I mean, they can make sense in the world, but they're not necessarily fun because it will result in that sort of thing. In some case, if it helps move the story, if it is interesting to the story, I'll do it. And then it's like, yeah, it's nothing you can do about it. But yeah, I'll just say no. I don't use them.
I feel like I took this to the other extreme with, if you go on my channel, I ran a social intrigue heist game called The Job and ran David through it. And the entire thing is you're walking into a magic user's house. So everything's trapped. And at some point, like, everyone is like, I'm just going to push all the buttons because half of this is trapped and half of it's not. So I'm just going to push all the buttons. And it's fun to just go the other direction of, okay, everything here is a trap. What's the risk I'm going to take?
Or you could turn around and run away, and as you're running,
trigger the trap.
GM goes, hey, do you remember that trap that was there? Does your character remember that? I was like, no.
It was
so
amazing.
You successfully navigated the trap and then triggered it in the other direction.
Yeah. So if it's a trap like scenario game and like it's like a heist or anything like that, sure. But I had players before that kind of like broke that for me because it was kind of like they looked at me and they're like, okay, you know where all the traps are in this, right? I was like, yeah, sure. It's like, okay, we're just going to break down every wall between here and the goal, and we're not going to go through doors or anything like that. And I'm like, that's fair. It's going to take you a while. It's going to make a lot of noise. And it's going to be exhausting. But yeah, you're not going to hit any of the traps that I have on this map. And they didn't.
I was in a game where people were like, yeah, we're going to go through, if we bust... Oh, in Mothership, we were like, if we bust through this door, then we don't have to go the long way around. Or we bust through this wall. And Jim's like, well, yes, but... Okay.
Yeah. Like, I got a pickaxe. We're going to do it. Like,
Kato says, I once had a GM who actually fed trap knowledge to the party member most likely to notice it, and it was their job to remember and report it to the party. Non-specific hints. Player 1 noticed that the bricks are a different color. Rex says... Yeah, Zelda style. Rex says, I make sure to make it obvious there are traps, bloodstains, scorch marks, etc., or make it more puzzle-based and have them either start with the tools or find their way along. I actually had Stephanie, my GM, who GMs my Himbo Bard. We had we were going through and we were like in this space and we had to keep going. We come up to this door and there's like this alphabet puzzle on the door. It's like letters and you had to slide them, and my character's an idiot. So he's just like, yeah, well, I'm playing inspiration, right? Just sitting back and letting the smart people figure it out and figure it out and couldn't figure it out and figuring it out and couldn't figure it out. The door wasn't even locked. It was just a distraction.
Oh boy.
Gum says, I picked up a lot of book traps as ideas, and I didn't want them to be everywhere, but I have 2 rogues that love to steal. Yeah, I'm pretty sure, I don't think you grabbed it, David, but I had tiny mimics that were disguised as books and told people to find a book.
Yep. And there was another one where it was like a room full of chests, and one of them was a mimic.
Technically 2 were, but you missed the other.
Right. And there are a couple of like dungeon storylines that I've developed, and what I always do is I always make it obvious that you are entering the trap area. Like, if you've got a rogue, you got a couple of rogues, you've got oops all rogues, and you're going to do a thing, then when you walk into the Indiana Jones style dungeon and you see bodies everywhere and you see a pit with spikes and people down in the pit with the spikes, and you have to walk past the big boulder that already rolled out of there, then maybe, just maybe, there might be traps in there. Otherwise, outside of like story related reasons, like if you're going into a kobold lair, you're gonna hit a tripwire at the end.
Yep.
But if you're just in the forest, making your way through the forest on your way, there aren't gonna be traps everywhere. And I've talked to people who are like, oh no, traps can be anywhere. Like, there's this trap that someone forgot about and walked, and I'm like, that's technically a thing that can happen, but why is this fun? Like,
yeah, I feel like to do that, it would have to be a really hilarious. Like, you'd only do that if the group is like having a bad day, and you just want to make someone hang upside down to let everyone like laugh, and it doesn't actually do damage. It's just like, ha 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 ha, like, I don't know. But that brings us nicely, like, so you don't use, and so you already spoke a little bit, Matt, about how you usually build your worlds around, here's an idea, usually something unusual. You don't use a lot of traps. Tell us a little bit more about your world building or philosophies you have, or...
So the main world that I have been working on for the last couple of years now, it's an archipelago, very low magic, and you actually can't get over level 5. There's a mechanical reason why, and it's built into the culture of the world and everything. It's like, yeah, there's a curse here. If you do too much in life, it's called the torpor, and then you just hang out. You just call it a day. You just hang up your sword. You go home. You start a bakery. That's what you do. And everyone's like, yeah, all right, cool. And everyone understands, like, it's the reason why there's very little war, because people who are super ambitious often get sent to pasture. That's basically, they're just like, anytime they try to do too much over that, they get hit with exhaustion levels. Every Sunday, everyone starts with an exhaustion level. I love this world and doing it this way. There's no dragons. There's very little dungeons. I don't know what I'm playing anymore, but it's 5e. And the whole thing is like, that's also why there isn't that many traps, because like my world, it's Scooby-Doo-ish, where people are the monsters. And if no one's making traps, then you're not going to run into any. And if you are fighting someone you know makes traps, then you should expect them. So it's like you do a lot of it is like reconnaissance on who you're fighting against, rival parties, political intrigue. You can pay people to do research for you. There are scouts, there are guilds. It's like, yeah, we're going to go in this area. I'm going to pay 10 gold. Tell me who's cool, who's not. What do I need to worry about? Everyone has their own little personal agenda because I've worked for all the characters and their backstories. They're often going to collaborate because it's like I give everyone a little bit of information privately.
I love that.
And if you don't communicate, then you're probably hurting everybody. And like I've seen people go into these games and they're just like, yep, tight-lipped, and like something will happen that only they know something about, and they won't say anything, and the game ends. And it's like, oh well, yeah, no, I knew all about that. So why didn't you say anything? Like, all right, cool. And then other people are like, okay, I know this. I'm like, oh, I can work with that. And it's that gives me time to like take my hands off. Characters build things in. They build the puzzle themselves, and then they come up with the answer, and then they just do what it is. So yeah, that's it. You did a great job. And I try not to make characters at odds with each other if I don't have to.
I really enjoy, like, I as a GM don't enjoy doing GM lore dumps. I prefer whenever I can to feed characters information and let them drop it. One thing, I haven't done this yet, but I've talked to David about it. One thing I would love to do, and I've thought about it a couple times, is run, a more condensed campaign, a short campaign, where every character is given 3 facts about this world, this situation, whatever. And they all know that one of them is a lie. but they don't know which one.
Yeah.
And like, this is a thing that your character completely believes all 3 of these things, but you as a player have the knowledge that one of these things is not true.
Fantastic.
Do kobolds use pressure plates for non-lethal purposes?
I mean,
How intelligent are kobolds? Do they even use pressure plates, or they'll have tripwires and rocks?
I mean, it depends on your kobold, because like I know in I'm not sure if it was the Monstrous Manual or like one of the other expansion sets, they really add different like levels of kobolds. So like there's a chieftain and there's a captain and there's and I don't imagine that like regular old kobolds just have like complex pressure plates and whatnot. But if they did, I don't imagine a group using technology only for one purpose.
Yeah.
Well, this ties in. Gum says that he would like to see kobolds that use pressure plates as trampolines.
I would use pressure plates for like getting dinner started when I get home. Can I do that?
Well, I mean, it would be really interesting if, you're being, if you're being invaded, like you use that as just like an activation thing, where like you step on a pressure plate, and things happen to make your area more secure. Or, you're running away from a guy, and you hit a pressure plate on purpose so that the rocks come down behind you.
Or even you get a pressure plate that's got like 2 settings. So kobold steps on it, and there's a delay to what happens, and then a heavier being steps on it, and a bigger thing happens immediately, because I have yet to play my kobold, but I can't wait to.
I struggle with dungeons because it's like, why are you here? Is someone living here? Are they defending it? What are they defending?
David has a whole rant about wizard towers that we're not going into because we don't have time today. But
I like wizard towers, so that's different. Yeah, I'm with that.
one of the great pieces of video game design I've ever seen is it was one of the new Lara Croft games. I think it was the second one. Lara Croft rolls up, takes a torch, and uses it to light a torch on the wall. And then there's this line of fuel, like, gasoline or whatever, but something flammable. And so it goes from there and goes through the whole dungeon, lighting torch after torch after torch after sconce, fire pits throughout the entire dungeon, because we've all played like Legend of Zelda or like Doom or like the original Lara Crofts or whatever, and gone into a place that has not been touched in 1,000 years, and there's fires burning, and you're like, how is there lighting in here?
Yes.
Yeah.
And the fact that they answered that question, top notch.
Yep.
So we've talked about some of your world building, and like David's world is pretty low magic. Like, I really enjoy low magic, like high RP, high intrigue campaigns. I have a character that I'm waiting for a high intrigue campaign that I could play because they'd be fine in a battle, but I'm much more interested in the political chaos that they could cause. But you put out, in addition, like, you put out books, you put out settings, tell us about all of your writing. Tell us more about what we can go throw money at you and incorporate into our campaigns.
Sure. So I just finally recently started putting out content. I was afraid of it. I'm like, I would say, I don't know why. It's
scary.
I didn't want to do editing, and I didn't know how. I didn't know what programs to use, and it was like, I got a really good one recommended. So I just said, yeah, all right, let's just make it. So basically, I just went to what I kind of know for fun to test it, and it did really well. So right now I have the 101 story questions for world building. I put that out at the beginning of August. It is a gold award winner now. It hit Electrum in less than 10 days. It was free for like a whole week, which doesn't count towards the medals. So, and like 1,000 people picked it up, and now it's closing in on I think 800 sales now.
That's great.
Great. I was never expecting anything at all. So I'm like, all right, cool, fantastic. Now this is a thing. So then I made volume 2. So I was super excited about it. And I added an additional section to it for writers. For if anyone wanted to do something that was like a longer.
It looks like you're at 801 because I just saw someone from someplace just made a purchase, which is a really cool thing on your page, by the way.
Oh, on you're looking at Jump Firefly?
Yeah.
These books, they're on DM's Guild. Jump Firefly is all the other stuff. But yeah, that does tick off with my stuff, which is fun.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah. So that's my writing as far as what I have so far available. And I like that because it again further goes into working with your players to build a collaborative world. And I actually made the first one to help build the world for the Aetherlogue, which is the podcasting one.
That was going to be my next. Like, I've had the great fortune to get to play with you, but where can we find you performing or GMing?
Actually the podcast is going to be the first in a while that is going to be the kind of static cast membership. I just recently finished a 4-episode run with Coyote and Crow. That was a lot of fun.
What a cool system.
It's so cool. Yeah, like if you love D12s, let me tell you, so many skill checks, and you're just dropping 2 handfuls of D12s. And,
I don't even think I have enough D12s for that system.
Yeah, I use D&D Beyond because it was like, and even if I did, they just roll all over the house because D12s.
That is also fair.
They have an app, but my phone is too old to download it. I have an iPhone 6.
Oh.
So that was really cool. And I'm actually gonna
That means you can spend more money on real dice.
Yeah, I do not have that. These are the only fancy D12s I have outside of my other 3 sets, David.
Wow.
This is all the dice I carry on me. Everything else is locked up somewhere else, so I don't start mixing them. This is the magic set. So.
I have a problem.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Kato asks, who did the cover art for 101 Story Questions for Worldbuilding? He loves the color palette choices.
I designed it. I did all the color stuff, all that stuff. Yep. Fun.
Ooh-wee.
So.
Yeah, all the art.
Tell us about. I keep trying to say Aethernet because a thing that David and I are working on is called Aethernet, and so my brain's just filling in that blank.
Yeah.
Aetherlogue.
So the Aetherlogue.
Tell me about Aetherlogue.
So the Aetherlogue. What do I normally tell people? It's basically like it's an evolving actual play podcast that is meant to be a series of campaigns. It's not just going to be this one 5e. We're going to play other games in it. Call it the Aetherlogue. It's sort of still connected, but we're not revealing why.
Cool.
And this first campaign we're doing, super excited. It's called the Key to Vidra. It's a 5e game in a collaboratively homegrown world, and it's run by Sam Comerford. If you're familiar with Role Playing and Role Playing on Twitter, that's Sam. Sam's the best. So the Key to Vidra it's like if you mixed the grit and horrific power of Riot's Arcane series with the sort of charm and fantasy heights of like a Studio Ghibli. Otherwise, we're just playing a lot of experimental rules and stretching 5e. So that's next week, so we're super excited.
So it's kind of just hand in hand with your low magic level 5 setting then. No real difference.
This one is a lot of magic. Yeah. Sam went ham when he was making this world, and like this big stakes, random things are just impossibly enchanted. Yeah, you just kind of go with it, and it's like suddenly you hit an ancient magical item which talks to you. Oh no! Oh no!
I don't
so
know.
Cool.
I don't know anything about that. That's never happened.
Yeah, never.
But no, like that's. I feel like I have a fairly distinct GM style, and I want that GM style to be more B. Dave Walters sometimes, because I love when a GM is just like, level 20, let's go. I'm gonna make it worse. Like, take all the magic items you want. Like when it wasn't level 20, but when I am so annoyed with myself. Brennan Lee Mulligan did Calamity. He was like, yeah, take all the magic items you want. You're living at the height of the magical era. Take them. And everyone's like, is this cheating? He's like, no, you're the most powerful people in a magic city at the height of magic. Go. I don't feel like I'm brave enough to do that yet.
Yeah, no, just here's the thing, Kate. Like we have so much experience with people who will outright break any system they're playing. Like
myself
we'll
included. Let's be fair.
You know the potential that you have to break a system, so the idea of giving that to 5 different people and saying go nuts, it's very intimidating.
I would be all gray under the purple. All gray under the purple.
Yeah. Well, the reason why I actually curtailed my world to level 5 was when I was first making it. It was that I didn't have a lot of time to play it, so prep was an issue. So it's like, okay, once we start getting into like level 6 plus, coming up with intricate challenges, and most of my challenges come in the form of NPCs. It's like, do I really have to make a whole new party because you wiped out the last one? And every time it's like just making all these characters with extreme items and all that stuff. And now it's like I have more time and I'm much better at it than I was. So I have plans to potentially expand it. We'll see how it goes. I'm hoping to start playing it again next year. There's a project I want to put together. It's so much work. We'll see how it goes. But I want to start it in early 20.
I know exactly what you mean, because Kay and I are we're working on multiple things at once, and one of those things would be a lot of work, and we're doing like 4.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, how do you have time to, like, do dishes when you're just in front of the computer doing this all the time?
Yeah, I have to lay awake, I still lay awake thinking about what happened with Jin's character at the end of Godplane and what that means for a world I'm no longer playing in. So laying awake, worrying about what 5 players with too much power are going to do in a world I'm still running is just, Rex Verde tells a story that I was actually there for, and says I once dimension warped a pirate king into the path of his own ship that was sailing on a sea of coins. So
that's awesome.
It was amazing.
Wow.
It was amazing. I was like, okay, another turn or 2 and I can do something cool. No, that just won. You won D&D. We can all go home. So you've done, like, you've run a lot of games. You've built a lot of cool things. What's your golden TTRPG memory?
Oh boy. It's man.
I'm asking the easy questions here.
Yeah, no, I know what it is. It's just got a lot of setup. So, one of the early campaigns I played with the people that I basically learned the game with, my first major game that I was DM for, I thought I was funny when I made a a simple like little obstacle course, kind of like down episode. Everyone gets to hang out. They join this fair, and my buddy's playing a monk, and he comes in second. So they don't get the magical item that I had advertised. Instead, I give them a consolation prize, which is a joke item called the Hour of Slaying, and it's like, yeah, it's got Christmas bells drawn into it. That's all it is. It's a joke, huh? And then they get it. They actually go and they get it enchanted, and it's like, this will turn into an actual sleigh. That's the joke. And then like later on, 15 levels later, they're going through all these things. And they're chasing down an ogre mage, and they got this wizard who's trying to summon a comet, and they got to go and track them down on this snowy mountain. They get to the peak, and the wizard is just like doing this thing. And the paladin, who is an archer paladin, they're in this combat. They can't get to him in time. I designed it for them to lose. I wasn't forcing it. It wasn't going to be railroaded, but I knew it was going to be difficult. It's just like, hey, let's see what happens if the world ends. So they get to this wizard. They know they can't reach him, and he's just like, I draw the arrow of slaying. I'm like, what are you talking about? I forgot all about it. And I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. Just all right, fire. And he hits a 20. And then it's just like, okay. And he reminds me about the joke item, and I just put my head in my hands because this wizard is standing at the edge of a cliff, and we ruled it that if he gets hit by the sleigh, it would work like Bull Rush, and it just takes this level like 19 wizard right
Moves
over
it back
the cliff.
5 feet, and
Yep.
that's all it takes.
And it's like, and it's basically like he pulls it back. He rolls as he's rolling the 20. He says, "Jingle bells, mother," and he hits it, and it just turns into the sleigh. I check. The wizard didn't have Featherfall performed at the time, and he was all of his minions see this and they scatter, and the second in command mercenaries, they see this and they're like, come on, man, and they just leave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. After that, you're just like, all right,
Like,
gonna
well.
go look for a new employer.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That was some good hinching. See ya.
No,
I mean,
it's like,
I feel
well
like
played.
paladins with items you forget about get you, because I kind of got you with the potion of giant strength in R1
Oh,
shot
yeah.
too.
Yeah.
I'm
That
like,
was
hold your
fantastic.
turn. No, hold your turn. Chug. Fastball special.
So good. Yeah, I really like to when I give out magic items, which I don't do often. I do it so without anything in mind.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, here's something entirely random. This isn't a key to anything. If you can figure out a use for this and you can get creative with it,
Yeah.
it makes my day. Go nuts. That same player is one of the most creative players I've ever been with, and his monk, as he like leveled up, got monk's wholeness of body, and his character was based on it. If you're familiar with Street Fighter, his character was Zangief. And so yeah, so he's running around as Zangief as a grappler, and we run into this campaign. I have a prince who is cursed with a demon blood plague, and he's like, okay, how about if I run a dialysis of his blood through my system of wholeness of body? Could we cure him of this thing? I'm like, well, there's a blood type match, and if you look up Zangief, his blood type is 0. So it's like his blood type is
universal donors.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's like, all right, if you can set up, and they did, because he had a wizard. That was brilliant. Like, all right, so that entire campaign is scrapped. You have saved the prince. Now what would you like to do?
Yep.
Like, I just had like the binder on the table. I just threw it over my shoulder. It's like, all right.
Yeah, it's just like this.
Yep. It's joy and pain. Like, you are so proud of your players, and you're so mad at yourself because that should have been. Why didn't I? Okay, fine.
I love it. I was so happy. I'm just like, I love it. Anytime the players foil me as a DM, it's the best. That's me winning. It's fantastic.
2, anyone who hasn't GM'd who wants to, 1, do it. It's a good time. 2, you will run into a point where your players will break something you set up. Like they will just completely shatter whatever encounter. And like binder goes over shoulder, pages get ripped up, like Control A delete, like something will get obliterated because your players outsmart you. And it is both awesome and a little frustrating. And if you're not careful, you may end up having to like build an entire new storyline based off of the thing that they did. Not that has ever happened to me.
I'll always do like the debrief, and I'd be like, yeah, so since you guys don't have to do this campaign, here's what would have happened. And then I go, that would have been cool.
Yep.
Yeah, but yeah.
David, I know we had a question in chat you were about to ask, and then I potentially have a segue question.
Yes. How do you balance work and home when all the ideas rush in? Gum asks.
So I am an agent of chaos. My ideas I write on junk mail. If I lose the junk mail, then it wasn't a good idea. Is really what it comes down to.
Fair.
I keep things in my phone because more often than not, I'll dream an idea and I'll write it down and go back to sleep. Or I'll be somewhere or doing something, or like playing a video game that I can't pause, and it's like, yeah, I gotta write this down very quickly and hope I don't die and figure it out from there. But ultimately, it's like you just kind of have to keep trusting that you need to write down the things that you think of, and then following through with it. As far as like life goes, you got to find a balance of work, or make work part of the game. Your game part of your work, rather. Yeah. Maybe a grown up about stuff.
Yeah, get a co-DM so you can like wake up in the middle of the night from a dream. Text him and go, hey, is this cool for the campaign or is this like lame? And then your phone rings with him going, are you okay? Like, are you okay? That's the most disturbing thing I've heard in a long time. Are you okay? God plan was the time, y'all. So no, I am part of the challenge, and Rex, this might be a little bit kind of what you're saying. Like, Saucefire, who's hanging out in chat, is just a minimal prep, high improv GM who is amazing at what he does.
Yeah, Sauce gives me anxiety.
Sauce is incredible. I am a writer to my core, and I'm like, but if I don't have the perfectly scripted third act, right, how can I... And so a lot of what I've been trying to do in my writing and my GMing recently is like let go of some things and be like, we've got these when we had Carrie on, Carrie Smith, who's an incredible GM, she was like, only write what the players can't change. And I'm like, but there's so much that, but that's also a little bit of a, that's a trap in itself too, because you start expecting things, and once you're like, no, the third arc is going to be this thing, so I have to get the players to this point so they can do this third arc, and you can get so focused on that you lose track of, but the players are actually doing something really interesting that's taking them this direction. So if that is part of your struggle, Rex, because that's part of my struggle, it is trust. Like, what I am working on is trust yourself and your ability to like guide the ship, but also trust your players, because Abria was talking about when she GMs, she thinks of it almost like a song, because players, when something starts resonating a certain direction, you want that arc, you want that moment, and if you kind of let that resonance start going, players will often just fall into line to make that thing happen for themselves. We were talking about what is it, harmonic dissonance, resonant dissonant, what is it when it's like in Rocky Horror Picture Show, most of the singers in the chorus are not very good, but because all the voices come together, it sounds great. So even though all of this is chaos and not perfectly sculpted, once you get a group of people together, they actually build something better together than they would have if it was you sitting alone trying to write this out. That's a working theory. I still got to work on that a little bit more. I want to find a way to connect those two more. But that was my thought of today.
Absolutely.
How do you have a balance that you try to strike between prep versus feeling out your players?
I over prep. I don't know if it's anxiety or if it's my dyslexia. I struggle with the with being on the spot. Like I play with Sam, and Sam runs Spontaneum on Tuesdays. I think he's got a game like right after this. So it basically the whole thing is improv. I can't keep up with it. I can play in it and do my best to react, but it's not at all a strength for me. So I do it to try to get better.
Yeah, it's really hard to get out in front, especially when you have a bunch of like brilliant players.
Yeah,
it's really hard to stay ahead of that.
Yeah, and it's easy for like you mentioned that stories and stuff can go off the rails, and if things don't match up to where you need them to go, I do think that it's okay to kind of level with your players and be like, listen, I need you guys to get here.
Especially for a stream campaign too, I feel like. I've definitely in stream campaigns been like, hey, look, you've got all these options. You can do any of them, but please don't do this one. Just please.
Yeah.
That's going to take us a place none of us want to go. I'll also say that can be a problem as a player too. I'm dealing with like writing my own mind, correcting my own mindset, because like I have a character in a campaign where I was like, okay, like all of this is going to happen, and the way all of this is going to come out is because like these conversations are going to go like this, and expected some pushback, and everyone's like, no, cool, awesome, if that's what you, cool, sure. And I'm like, I don't know how to play this character with you. I have to go rethink this. Hold on. Like, and I found myself in the middle of a session going like, oh no. So yeah, you have to trust your players as a GM and as a player too. Rex says 100% on the arc and resonance. I have my players give me a backstory that I work on in the campaign. I throw clues at them and steer them where they need to go. It helps with session prep as I can guide them to where they need to go. We know there are a lot of quests that you can choose from, but for the love of gods, don't do X.
Yeah.
And I've also had situations where usually with players both in my current game and in past games that I've run, they don't go through content as quickly as I think they will. And so, I'll sit down and I'm like, okay, we have a 3-hour session. They're going to get to the castle, and they'll still be at the front gate drawing with the castle guard like 3 sessions later. But there have been a couple of rare occasions where I've gone, listen, you guys have chewed through everything that I have prepped so far, and because what's coming up is very pivotal, I don't want to just pull this out of my ass. So we're gonna wrap up today, and then we're gonna come back next week, and I'll have everything ready then.
And I've had a GM be like, you know what, I've prepped this session, but Roe v. Wade was just overturned, and I don't have the energy to run this intense of a session. So communicate with your players, with your GM, with other players. I do tons of check-ins with the more you do that, the more people get comfortable and will start including you in things. And it's good. It's just I'm always over communicate.
Yeah, it's a level of social maturity.
Communicating the right amount.
Yeah. Actually, I got a random kind of question, because now that you mentioned that, Dave, it's like, now I'm wondering if maybe someone else kind of went through what I did, which I didn't really understand as I was doing it coming up as a DM. When you were writing stuff as a novice DM, trying things out, did you leave a lot of space for role playing, or were you kind of did your players not gravitate to speaking too much? They just kind of wanted facts, moved along, wanted the dice?
So the very earliest things that I developed was definitely A to B to C to D, like there was no branching. I'm like, this is going to be obvious. This is going to lead in this direction. Completely not understanding that my players were just going to shatter everything. But now, like, 10 years later, it's has it been 10-ish years later? It's tough because whenever I sit down, like, and Kay and I have gone back and forth about this, I do a terrible, terrible job of developing one-shots because my brain immediately springs to all the different types of outcomes you could have with one NPC interaction.
Yep.
And if you're doing a bigger, longer form game, like the home game I'm running, that's great because you have that character and you have all the different branches of where it could go, and then you use those branches to connect to your main storyline. And so you have, 7 or 12 different ways that it all comes back to the same point. But that takes a lot of time and a lot of energy. But when it comes to doing like something smaller where it's like a one shot or 3 or 4 episodes, now I definitely make headspace for, okay, my players are going to talk to these people, and the NPCs need to have a background, they need to have personalities, but it gets so big so fast that I have a hard time like narrowing it down. That's why Kay, beats me over the head with a rolled up newspaper, and it's like, it's too big. No.
So I was terrified to start running games. I was afraid that I wouldn't know the D&D lore well enough. I wasn't afraid of the mechanics. I was afraid of the lore. I don't know why. I feel like that's opposite for most people. I was afraid I would mess up the name of a god and everyone would know I was a fraud and I would be banned from the community forever. Don't ask me how I got there. I did.
I mean, it happens all the time.
So I consumed a whole lot of streamed campaigns. I consumed Into the Motherlands, I consumed Critical Role, I consumed Black Dice Society, I consumed Shikar. I watched all of these streams, and I somehow that hardwired a certain pacing into me. So when David and I were doing our first stream campaign, he's told the story a couple times. I'm like, okay, it's gonna go here, it's gonna go here, and then we're gonna end either here or we'll do this one more thing. Like, this will be flexible. And then I'm like, okay, yes, I absolutely consumed. And I'm like, and okay, we've got 8 episodes worth of content, so we're gonna tell everyone it's gonna be 10 episodes. And for my first time running a game, it was freakishly spot on. So I don't know how I developed that spidey sense, but David tells this story almost any chance he gets, where he was like, I don't know. I'm like, we're gonna end here, and that's where we ended.
And not just, okay, so we so this is gonna be 10 episodes. Wait, roleplay. Boop boop. We need 8 episodes of content, and then they'll fill out the next with. So like, she nailed that. And then she would go, okay, so this week they're gonna start here. We're gonna do this thing. There's gonna be this encounter, and then we're out. And then they're gonna meet Bob in the forest, and like 2 hours and 59 minutes in, like, here comes Bob strolling out of the forest, and then she's like, and that's it for this week. And I'm like, and she did it like 10 times in a row.
I studied B. Dave Walters. That's what I blame. I just went, this one knows what he's doing.
And he does.
Yeah.
But yeah, and don't get me wrong, everyone talks about Matt Mercer, the Matt Mercer effect. Matt Mercer's great. I'm not debating that. But if you want to know how to do arcs, and if you want to know how to set things up, go watch B. Dave Walters and go watch Brennan Lee Mulligan. They somehow, something about their pacing, I just started watching those two and I'm like, okay, I get this. Home games, it's obviously different, because home games you can mess around a lot more, but stream games, I don't know, I gotta feel for it. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I also try to build, and I don't know if this helps at all, I try to build things a little bit modularly. So like this has to happen and this has to happen. And then here's all these little things that can happen in between. And if they're taking too long, we're going to pull one of these out and just let them hang out in this one area and role play. Or if everything is really, really intense and everyone's really, really sad, let's bring in this happy option, right? Let's have the fluffy bunny come in. So I kind of keep a lot of those different options kind of floating here so I can read the table, read the time, and pull in what I need.
It's almost like Shakespearean beats, bringing in the comedic relief when you need it.
I may or may not be an English major.
English major. Exactly. Yeah. that's where a lot of my writing rules come from when I'm doing like campaigns and stuff, because it's like that kind of goes back to why on one shots I like characters to matter, because like when you're writing a story, any story, there needs to be a reason why this character
right
is the one solving this problem. So if you can make it a unique thing specifically to them that only they themselves can do, their skill set, their background, everything that goes with it makes them the perfect hero of legend for this moment, then that's what creates a special memory. That's what I try to do.
Yeah, Rex Verde says, and this is correct, B. Dave has done a ton of interviews. He talks about his method. Start here. I know I need to be at the end. Something happens in the middle. So he actually says, I know where we start here. I know where I want us to be at the halfway point. I know where I'm going to lead us, but he doesn't necessarily know where it's going to end. I structure it more than that, but with the flexibility. So I'm like, you guys can't, I don't want to be like, you guys can't roleplay anymore. But sometimes, I feel the only time I really need to turn up a pressure is if people are trying to, avoid an encounter. And sometimes you do have to give players a push, and that can usually be, oh, we're going to stand around and try and logic our way out of this without doing anything. And it's like, okay, well, if you stand around, something's going to come and bite you in the butt.
Yep.
But yeah, David and I talk a lot about Save the Cat.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Heck yeah.
If you all don't know Save the Cat, it is an excellent book about writing screenplays, but TTRPGs, especially streamed, but it's still really good. Here's the thing, and Matt, I'm sure you'll agree. The more you know about these rules, the more you know about why people react to stories, the more you can use it, and you start using it unconsciously, and you know when to break those rules. You know how to throw people off the scent of your big bad. That it gets a lot easier when you know the rules. It's like I had been doing TTRPGs before I took improv classes, and once I started taking improv classes, I'm like, oh, I do that thing. I didn't know that was a thing, and I didn't know it had a name, but now I can be more conscious about doing it. So reading all those books, learning about your craft will make you not just a better player, but more confident, because you're like, I know this will work because this is how we work.
Yep. Absolutely. Got to do it. Because otherwise, it just feels like this nebulous thing of, I have to make something. It can be anything. And it's like no one's making complete things out of absolute randomness, and they just happen to work. Right. There are the pieces and the parts. Oh, sorry.
When it comes to save the cat, kick the dog, once you know that rule, like any other rule, like Kay said, you can play with it, and so there are, and it's become a sort of popular trope now of a seemingly benevolent rich person, someone who has a charity, someone who does nice things, and so it looks like saving the cat, and then you get that peek behind the closed doors, and then there that dog is just getting kicked. And so doing that, Kay and I talk a lot about, and we've done an episode on building villains, and not just villains, but also NPCs. And so understanding these storytelling elements, understanding where you are in your act, understanding what sort of act structure you have, gives you the grounding that you need to decide what you're going to do next. Because sometimes you're sitting there and you're like, and that's when the perfect time for Chekhov's gun to go off. And then you could also put Chekhov's gun there as a red herring and then make something else happen. And so there are a lot of things that you could do both to and with your players when you have a more broad understanding of all the different storytelling elements.
Literary devices, dramatic irony, lean into these. These are your mutant powers when you figure them out.
It's
like, you can only subvert a trope when you're familiar with the trope.
It's also really useful, and I can't wait to do an episode on ending a campaign. I'm not quite ready to do, there's some more work and research I gotta do, but like, again, this is no tea, this is no shade, but Matt Mercer hasn't quite figured out how to end a campaign in a really fulfilling, rewarding way yet. I say this as a person who sat through 2 complete arcs of Critical Role and both times been like, He finally got Vox Machina wrapped in the 3rd one-shot. That was a perfect closure. And a lot of it has to do with bracketing. If you want to know how to end a campaign, watch Dimension 20. Brennan Lee Mulligan knows how to end a campaign. And a lot of the reason, and it's the same reason that the Lord of the Rings movies are not a fulfilling ending, because they're not correctly bracketed. You end a story the same way you write code, and if you do it in the wrong order, it doesn't make sense and it's not fulfilling. So if you were coming up on an end of a campaign, look into narrative bracketing. You have to close things in the same way you opened them, or else everyone's gonna go, I didn't like that, why did it have 5 endings?
Yep. Return of the King is notorious for it. There are 7 endings in this movie.
And had they just done them in a different order, probably would have felt better.
That's why so many people were upset about the Mass Effect 3 ending, because they didn't even do it.
Ooh, that one.
Yep.
Ooh, that
one stings.
Ooh, yeah, that still hurts a little bit.
Yeah,
it's fine.
They tried to fix it in the in the anniversary release or the remaster or whatever. They added a whole bunch of extra stuff, but it's all like exposition ending. You don't get that thing.
Conversely, since we're talking video games,
oh boy, here we go.
The ending to BioShock.
BioShock could always beat me up.
Okay. So you play BioShock 1, brilliant game. They land a plane, great. They announce the next one, and you're like, why would they have? Well, I guess they'll do a sequel to this. And then you play the second one, and you're like, it was fun. I don't know if that was like necessary. And then you play a third one, you get to the end, and you're like, okay, that was a game. It ended. They had some cool ideas, but then you play the DLC, and when you get to the end of the DLC,
this is like watch it to the end of season 4, but
no. Here's the thing: on their own, each of the BioShock games are brilliant, like generationally great games. But what pushes it just that little bit further is you get to the very end of the DLC, and they're like, wow, they really went back and tied everything that ever happened in all 3 games together and then made you cry. How dare you?
And that's
what
like
you want.
That's another like great point about if you really want to become a better storyteller. And I don't just mean as a GM, because if you are a player, you are storytelling. You are part of this story, building this world as much, and in some points in the game, more than the GM, because you are one of the main characters. You're not the main character. Don't run out there and have main character syndrome. Kay never told you to have main character syndrome.
Right.
But, you are part of this. So when you start watching media, why do I like this thing? Why is this exciting? Why was this unsatisfying? And start asking, like, how does this tie in? And the more you're conscious of that, the better your storytelling is going to be. The better you're going to be able to pick up, why did that conversation feel weird? Why did that feel abrupt? Why did that feel out of character? But I'm going to throw out one more thing. Have you read the Mistborn series by chance, Matt?
No.
So, Mistborn trilogy. As a lady type, have a really hard time with a lot of male fantasy authors who write women characters, because often it's painful. Mistborn is one of the rare exceptions where I'm like, I am into this heroine. And I mean that as in a woman lead character, not a drug. Though Jen is kind of both. Kind of both.
You can shoot her into my veins. It's fine.
It's a trilogy, and you finish the first book, and you're like, okay, yeah, that was good. I understand this entire world. The world is a box. It's nicely built. I get it. And then you're like, you go into the second book, and you feel like the box opened, and there's a passage into a bigger box in the bottom of that box. Like, and it doesn't contradict, and it makes perfect sense that this is the way you get into a bigger box. And the third book is the same way. And by the time you get to the end, you're like, I can't believe, at least I was like, I can't believe I didn't figure out this thing by the end, because it makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So angry.
But yeah, really, really good.
It's been a long time since I've been outsmarted by an author that bad. Without spoilers, if you're interested in, there are mechanical things in the book, like in terms of like the magic system. And
it's like science-based magic.
I love it. I'm in.
And so, like, you know, you read it, and there are like two types of the way things work, and one of them, well, one's really cool, and then one's really, really cool. And you know, you go through it, and you get to the like middle of the third book, and you're like, okay, I got it. I have a deep understanding of how this magic system works. They just go and say, oh, well, this person has this material, and you automatically know what that means because you've been educated on this system over the course of 2.5 books. And then you get to the end of the book, and the author's like, by the way, you didn't think about this, but this is very important to the plot. And you're like, I'm really mad because I didn't think about that, and it makes perfect sense. How dare you?
And I love it, too, because, like, it's a magic where, like, you can push on a thing. And if you push on a thing that's lighter than you, it pushes away. And if you push on a thing that's heavier than you, you get pushed back. And it's so simple.
Yep.
But it's just like, oh no, this magic makes sense. But we are rambling. Yes, Mistborn Trilogy by Brandon Sanderson. It is redonkulously good.
Coming up with like a system like that is I have so much respect for it, because like you see it in like anime, like Naruto and everything else. It's like you start to figure out like how chakra works and all these different abilities and stuff like that, where you can predict what's going to happen. And it's like My Hero Academia, all that kind of things. I watch a lot. So,
same.
Yeah, being able to work within the confines of the rules that you set, that sort of thing, and then finding different ways to throw it on its head, trick people a little bit, characters outsmarting each other with it. Mm-hmm. That's just top notch.
And Sanderson aggravates me. He pisses me. Like, Brandon Sanderson, if you're watching this, we're gonna fist fight one day because you're too good, and I'm gonna need you to take about 20% off of that, because this man puts together this really awesome magic system in this fantasy setting, and then he's like, all right, hundreds of years go by, it's now a more modern, like it's like a post-Victorian, like industrial revolution era setting. By the way, all those magic powers are still there. What does this society now look like?
Yeah, and they've changed and intermingled in this way,
and you're just like, there are cars and guns and stuff.
They did,
and also this magic.
He did an Avatar, like not the Airbender, not the Smurfs, where there was a time jump, and you're like, all of this makes sense as to exactly how this would happen. I don't think the second set of Mistborn is as good as the original trilogy, but it's still worth it. He figures out the story he's telling in the first one, like in the last chapter. So I finished that, and I'm like, oh, he's gonna write more because he just figured out the story. And yeah, then it happened. But
I really feel like out of everything I've read of his, Mistborn will be the thing. Like you know how they talk about like the Dark Tower or The Stand for Stephen King, where they're like, okay, all these books, sure, they're fine, but this, they're gonna do the same thing with Mistborn for Sanderson.
I think that Brandon Sanderson fans should absolutely call themselves Sand fans.
Now that you mentioned a like kind of like gritty magic cars, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the Aetherlogue is. So check that out.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm super excited. We just built a car. Oh, I'm not supposed to talk about that. Yeah,
Oops.
so that's fine.
Oops. It's fine.
But yeah, we just built a car.
No one watches the show. It's fine.
It's so fun. Yeah.
Well, yes, we are kind of nearing the end of our time here, and we thank you so much. Do you have any final thoughts or tips or ideas or any final thing you'd like to promote? What is your final bit of wisdom?
Well, I do have one question, and you can choose not to answer
Oh,
this
yeah,
because
sure.
it's kind of giving away but out of the 2 books, the story questions for world building, off the top of your head, without looking at anything, what is 1 or 2 memorable questions for your world building?
Oh boy, the ones that I remember that I liked doing. At the end of the first ones, like the last, I think 5 or 6, imagine a landmark that is important to a type of person. So it would be like, imagine a landmark that is important to athletes, monks, martial artists, that kind of stuff. I like that because like if a player is coming up with that and it's not their class or specialization, you can come up with some random things, and like they might not even care why it's important, but they can still say it. And then anyone who might be that, or if no one is that, then I can still plant it, and now we have a certain development. Another one I liked is your character has an ache from training that they still deal with, and it just allows you to be like, I'm fighting. It gives you like a little role play of a physical description that carries and shows, not necessarily the whole like chronic pain kind of thing or anything. It's just this little nagging injury that doesn't hinder you, but it's something that exists. Your character's real breathing. They're not 100% every time they go out. Adventuring takes a toll on you. Your training took a toll on you. And yeah, you might be coming up as a hero and all that stuff, but these things happen, and it's fun to just kind of like, you have that.
I mean, anyone who's ever played a sport or who spent some quality time in a weight room will tell you, it's not a permanent, like you don't end up with like the cool facial scar or whatever. But everybody's got a thing where it's like, oh man, that thing pulled again, and here we go, rehabbing it again.
Yeah, trick shoulder, man. I gotta be careful on this side, just so you know.
And it kind of gives
rock climbing. Yeah.
And it also gives like the other party members something to be like, you okay? What's the story behind that? Like something to talk about on a human or whatever fantasy race they are playing level.
Yeah.
A tiefling level or an orc level.
So anything that'll like make characters feel more real. Mm-hmm. Something I'm trying to say more is like the game is an escape, so we can work on escaping better or escape well. And if you're taking your time, of all the things that you could be doing in life, you're playing this to try to recharge, try to have fun, that kind of thing. Let's just make it a little bit better if possible. So you deserve that. Everyone deserves that. Anyone who puts their time into the game, we can amp up quality just a little bit here, just a little bit here. Like when I'm running games, it's about making memories. That's the important thing to me. I like running ridiculous scenarios so that people will be like, years later can be like, hey, one time I did this. I want to be that person. So if I can help you say, yeah, I teleported on top of a Tyrannosaurus's head and I used Thunder Stomp or whatever, and I broke its neck. That's not something a lot of people can say, but it's like, yeah, you had the opportunity to do it. You did it. It was awesome. That kind of stuff. But so yeah, build memories, have fun with it. include the people that you care about, and then share these stories because that's what, stories make up our lives. You can play many lives in this, so enjoy it.
Yeah, and I like that you include the people, because it really is, I can stand here and my character do something really, really cool. But it's so much cooler when I'm able to fastball special someone and let them have the final hit. Or when I notice the thing that I can't do, but I point that out to the ranger who can make the shot. And let's be fair, rangers need every shot they can get because their class needs a little bit of help. I want to play more rangers, but it's hard.
How about you? I just put out a new ranger subclass that is teamed up with, you get a magic mount. So if you ever seen Princess Mononoke, you can make Prince Ashitaka and Yakul. It's so cool. It just came out.
Cool.
50 cents. Amazing.
So yes, tell us again. Now your social's showing up under, but tell us again who you are, where we can find you, what you create, and how we can support you, be it financially or showing up to your streams.
Yeah. So I've been Matt, DungeonGlitch. If you want to find any of the things that I'm making, go to gemfirefly.com. That's where you will find all of the fun little merch. I got this self-care little magic potion guy.
Self-care is so important.
Yeah, we have a lot of bestsellers, and it's fun for me now to just pop on random streams and see people wearing my stuff. I'd love it. I got mugs for stuff. My icon that I'm known for now is this Vapor Orc Captain, because I love making orcs awesome. If you want to try out any of my books, they're made to be quite affordable. I typically give them away for free the first week I put them out because it's fun for me. They're on DM's Guild right now. Just look up Matt Joro or 101 Story Questions for Worldbuilding. If you like lo-fi music, I'm on Spotify. That's fun. I just make music so people can play in the background of their streams and their games. If you need random tools and generators for free, go to rpg.com, rpgforfree.com, or DungeonGlitch.com, because I just made a ton of generators that'll help you come up with. Again, I do a lot, man. It's fun for me. I don't stop because I don't know how to, and it's.
I feel that chaos gremlin energy.
Yeah. So the thing that I wanted that I would like to highlight the most is I'm playing on the Aetherlogue. Super excited. You can go to Aetherlogue.com. That's AE. Aetherlogue. I'm dyslexic. So it's. But yeah, it's going to be a 5e podcast for now. I play with Sam Comerford, Christian Culler, Mark Darkusha from Cast Die Podcast, and Lex Titanomakia, who made Caltrop Core, which, if you ever wanted to make a game, that is the fastest way and easiest way for you to get your feet wet. Do it. It's fantastic. So, super talented people. Comes out next week. I don't like talking about myself. There's a lot. So I'm super grateful because you guys are awesome. This was so fun.
Thank you so much for coming out. Rex in chat says, thank you for a great stream. I learned a lot, laughed a lot, as always. So thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and talking about yourself, even though you don't like doing it. We appreciate.
There's one more question that
there's
you have
one
to
more very important question, which we forgot last stream, and we were amiss.
What's that?
What is your favorite Pokemon?
Favorite Pokemon? Alakazam. No question.
That was a very quick answer.
Question.
Yeah, he was like, here it is.
So when I play Pokemon, I don't care what version. If I get an Abra, if I get 2 Abras, I will roll with 2 Alakazams the entire game. I don't care what else I need. It doesn't matter because I will Psybeam Palkia to death. It doesn't even matter. I'm done. I roll with these 2 Sinister. They're actually named Sinister in something awful because I just roll. I'm this cute little kid, but I got these giant psychic monsters flanking me anytime I draw my character. Yeah.
That is excellent. Love it. Did you play Arceus?
No. I haven't played in a while. I think like 2 generations back. I started that one. I made my Alakazams and
So you can like throw out, you can capture alphas, which are even bigger, like they're giant. So they're almost twice the size of regular Pokemon, and then you can throw them out for photo ops, so you just have these massive ones, and then like your little...
I need that. Okay, I'm gonna go get that. I'm gonna get that.
Oh no, look
'Cause
where I started.
I need my guy with his spoons, just like... You see him, you done.
I see you
You
played
just give me
Knife
your
or
badge.
Spoony before.
Oh boy, did I say that a lot.
Matt,
Yeah.
thank you so much. I am Kay. You can find me every Monday this month or every other Monday this month, starting on the 12th, over at the Red Hair Inn, playing at the Halls of the Mad King, my chaotic tiefling, not tiefling, changeling, lots of lings.
Mhm.
Here every Tuesday with my awesome co-host, David. Emergency Power Podcast. New episodes come out every other Wednesday. That's a Starfinder game. Don't have to know Starfinder to enjoy it. It is homebrew, and I play the worst character in the world. Thursday, and then 2 Thursdays from now on the 22nd, I'm going to be with Saucefire in chat over on his channel playing Trixie, the alchemist raccoon, black powder enthusiast. Yeah, it's fine. It's totally fine. And coming up soon, there's going to be something on the 29th. Mark your calendars. I can't wait
Yes.
to tell you all about it. David, who are you and what are we doing here?
I am David Lee. You can find me on Twitter at FullRubberDucky. This is the Chaotic Wholesome Talk Show where we talk about TTRPG stuff, how to be a better player, how to be a better GM, all with a focus on inclusion and intersectionality so we can all have a good time.
This is
And
fun. I learned stuff here. This is great.
we had so much fun having you. Thank you for hanging out with us. Any final thoughts, Matt, before we flip over? And who we gonna raid today?
Sure.
Oh, Crystal. We'll go raid Retro Crystal.
Yep, she's still going.
Yeah.
If anyone wants to see an entirely improv game in 20 minutes, Spontaneum starts.
Okay.
Run by Sam Combs.
Do you have a link to that? Can you throw it in our Discord and we will throw it in chat so everyone can go?
Let me just click.
You are wonderful.